Welcome to Hebrew Mindset Ministries. We teach the unadulterated Word of Yahweh from the ancient Hebrew point of view. We believe that the Word of Yahweh, or Torah, is everlasting and never changing. We believe that every word that Yahweh has spoken must be obeyed. We hope you enjoy the following teaching. As always, never stop searching for the truth. Shalom.
All right, we're back again, and we're going to go back to Matthew 7, and we're going to continue from where we left off. We're going to continue with verse 24, remembering that Messiah said that he did not know them and commanded them to depart from them because they had not obeyed the law. Verse 24 says, therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and does them shall be a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain came down, and the floods came, and winds blew and beat on the house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them shall be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain came down, and the floods came, the winds blew, and they beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. And it came to be when Yeshua had ended these words that the people were astonished at his teachings, for he was teaching them as one possessing authority, not as the scribes. Okay. So, it's very important that you read that section from the context of verse 23. All right? Where he told them to depart from him because they had not obeyed the law.
Amen.
So it's about not obeying the law, or obeying the law, depending on the context, okay? In this case, he's going to give us two examples. Those who obeyed his voice, the law, and those who did not obey his word, the law. Okay? Those who obeyed the law, okay, those who call him master but obey the law, have founded their house on a rock. Now the scripture says that Messiah is the chief cornerstone. Alright? That's a reference to the very first stone set in a foundation, through which all the other stones of the foundation are laid. Alright? It's like the plumb line. It makes everything else level and square. Okay? That's Messiah. But there's still a whole bunch of other rocks connected to it that make the foundation. Those are the Torah, the commandments of Torah. So you have Messiah, who's the chief cornerstone, and all the commandments of the law are measured from him. They all get their authority from him. They're all directed to what it means to be in him. So to be in him is a reference to both him and his word, or the Torah. Okay? So those who are founded on that rock, Messiah and the Torah, when those winds and storms of this life and the trials and tribulations and the wrath of Yahweh comes, their house is safe.
Amen.
Why? Because they're in him. He is the ark upon which they'll find their protection in the last day. Because they're in him. Just like Moses was in the ark when the wrath of Yahweh came by flood. Okay? We will be in that ark too. Why? Because we have found grace in the eyes of Yahweh, because we did we were righteous. We did what he said, which is exactly the position Noah was in, which got him in the ark. He received the grace of Yahweh. Go read it. He received the grace of Yahweh because he was a righteous man.
Amen.
And when Yahweh told him to build the ark, he did not hesitate. He just built it. And when he told him to go in, he went in.
That's right.
And when he went in, Yahweh closed the door and protected him when the wrath came. That's exactly what's being said. When Messiah and the Torah are the foundation, our belief, our trust in him that is lived in obedience is the foundation upon this house. This temple is to be built. And when it happens, the wrath and the struggles of this life have no power to destroy us. We will endure. First Revelation, chapter 14, verse 12 says, "This is the endurance of the saints, Those who have or keep the commandments of Elohim and have the faith in Yeshua Messiah. These two things, that's the foundation that allows us to remain secure and fixed and gives us endurance when the troubles come. So that on that day when he comes and blows that trumpet, we will be with him as the rest of the world suffers the wrath of Yahweh. We are protected because he is coming to be our ark of safety. All right? But it includes everything the law says, both the commandments and the sacrifice. Let's go to 1 John chapter 2. I have a teaching that I've made and put on our Facebook page about the epistles of John.
Verse?
Chapter 2, we're going to start in verse 1. Okay. If you want an interesting reading, read something very interesting and informative, you should go read that. Because it's going to give you a whole new outlook on who John was and what he taught. 1 John chapter 1. On my notes here I asked the question, do believers sin? Remember what 1 John 3:4 says? Sin is the transgression of the law. Right? Okay. John says in chapter 2, 1 John chapter 2 verse 1 says, my little children, I write this to you so that you do not sin. So he tells us not to sin. Sin is the transgression of the law. So he's telling us, do not disobey the law. And if anyone sins, we have an intercessor with the Father, Yeshua Messiah, the righteous one, and he himself is an atoning offering for our sins, and not for ours only, but also for the whole world. Again, Messiah is the atoning offering, right? That forgives our sin. However, John tells us not to sin. That's a command. Do not sin. But if you do, there's this distinction between these two things. We're commanded not to sin, which means we're commanded to obey the Torah. John is commanding us to obey the law. But if we do disobey the law, there's a distinction between unintentional sin. Remember what our Torah portion said? Those who sin by mistake. Right? So there's the command not to disobey the law. And then he says, but if we do make a mistake. So it's the difference between intentional disobedience and unintentional disobedience. Disobeying on purpose, willfully, or disobeying by mistake. Okay? Keep that in your mind. There is a distinction here. Intentional sin. You know what the commandment says and you refuse to obey it. This is a rejection of the sacrifice that was paid for you. How do we know this? Well, let's go to Hebrews 10:26, shall we? Now, this is not the only verse that's going to say this, but this is one of my favorites because it's so clear. Okay, that's the wrong book, Mitch. No wonder it doesn't look correct. Now we're in chapter 10 of Hebrews. Before we go to verse 26, I want everybody to look at verse 19 and see that it says, so brothers, having boldness to enter into the set apart place by the blood of Yeshua. So brothers, who's he talking to?
Me.
He's talking to you and me, all that claim to be believers in Messiah. Verse 26 says, if we, it's talking about us, believers, for if we sin purposely. Sin is the transgression of the law. Purposely means we do it intentionally. If we disobey the law intentionally, willfully, after we have received the knowledge of the truth is who? Yeshua is the truth, right? He's the true sacrifice that cleansed us from sin and made us right again. If we sin purposely after we come to the knowledge of truth, there no longer remains a slaughter offering for sin. Why? Because we are brothers, we've already accepted the sacrifice for sin in Yeshua, right? That's what makes us brothers. If we sin purposely or disobey the law intentionally after we've come to the knowledge of that sacrifice, there is no more sacrifice for sin. It's already been paid and we violated it. So what is there to look forward to? It says, but some fearsome anticipation of judgment and a fierce fire which is about to consume the opponents. So what happens to the believer that refuses to obey the Torah? What does he got to look forward to? A hot fire judgment. That's what he has to look forward to.
He becomes an opponent.
That's right. Verse 28. Anyone who has disregarded the Torah of Moses dies without compassion on the witness of 2 or 3 witnesses. How much worse punishment do you think shall he deserve who has trampled the Son of Elohim underfoot, counted the blood of the covenant by which he was, past tense, set apart as common, and insulted the spirit of favor?
That is the definition of the unpardonable sin.
That's right. In fact, if you want evidence of that, what the unpardonable sin is, go to Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 8. It talks about how it is impossible, once we have come to the knowledge of Messiah and received grace and received the Spirit and come to the knowledge of the Word and experience the powers of the kingdom to come and turn away, to be restored again. It's impossible to be restored again once you've come to that kind of understanding, that kind of depth. Now, admittedly, the Christian church does not have that kind of understanding, because their teachers have left them, only give them half the teaching. They've taught them about grace, which is the gift. They've taught them about, receiving the Spirit. But they have not taught them their responsibility to obey the Word.
No path.
So they've given them a belief with no works, a grace with no way to live it. And so they are still ignorant of the full truth. And I believe Hebrews 10 is referring to that as well. That Christians may, I'm not going to say definitely, but may find some mercy in the Father because of their ignorance. They don't know the whole truth. But that is my hope. I cannot prove it. And no one else can either. If they say they did, they're liars. What I can prove, if people don't obey the law in their belief, that is condemnation upon them. I can prove that. But there's this little gray area where the mercy of Yahweh trumps judgment. Okay? So I'm hoping, because I have a lot of people I care about that are still Christians, that are in this air that they can believe and not have to obey. I'm hoping that the mercy of Yahweh will extend it to them. However, I cannot teach you or anyone else that it's okay to disobey the law, because once I've told you, now you're accountable. I've told you in this passage and other passages that you were required to obey the law. Now that you've heard it, if you continue to walk in disobedience to the law, this passage will condemn you. Because you're no longer in ignorance.
Is dangerous.
Yes, very dangerous. You are no longer ignorant of your responsibility. You might not agree with me, and you might not want to believe it, but that doesn't matter, because if what I'm saying is true, then you're condemned if you disobey from now on. Because you know, I've told you. So you have a responsibility to prove me wrong or right. Try to prove me wrong, I dare you. And I don't want to hear your opinions or your pastor's opinions. I want it from the book, and not just the New Testament, the entire book.
Amen.
Okay. According to this passage, verse 31, it is a fearsome thing to fall into the hands of a living Elohim. It's a fearsome thing to stand before Yahweh on that day and have thought so little of His Son's death that you just trampled on it by living your own way. I would not, for no amount of money in the world, want to stand before a righteous Yahweh and try to explain that I thought so little of His Son that I just continued disobeying the law that He died to save me from. He died to save us from disobedience and the penalty of it. How arrogant is it of us to think we continue walking in disobedience? That is arrogance. It's pride. It's stupidity. Anyone telling you that is a liar. He's leading you down the path of destruction, and you will burn in the lake of fire with him. Messiah accused the Pharisees of this very thing, told the Pharisees that to go out through all the world to get themselves one disciple, and then make that disciple a greater child of hell than themselves. That's the same thing Christians are doing now. Christian pastors and teachers and theologians. I would not have that for you, brother, or your children, or anybody you care about, because I want as many people in the kingdom as possible. Amen. I would love nothing more in the last day to be standing beside Messiah and showing the Satan that he did not have victory over me or my family or you and your family. That we brought more to the truth than he could drag away. In the end, Yeshua will be the victor. Every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that He is the master above all else. And there's only one way you get to stand beside Him. That's a trust, a faith in Him that is lived in obedience from a heart of compassion. That's the only way. There's no other way.
There is one passage, Romans 3:31, that if you look at it in every version, whether it's NIV, King James, the scriptures, whatever the version is, every one of them says, and I'm going to read from the scriptures, which is what we usually read from, but if you can test all of them, but from the scriptures it clearly states, do we then nullify the Torah through the belief? Let it be not. On the contrary, we establish the Torah.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Test every single version because it clearly states to establish the laws, establish the Torah.
Right. So what the question will be, that's awesome, sister, and thank you very much. The question then is, what does it mean to establish the law? Well, he said he didn't nullify it, right? So if you don't nullify something, what does it mean to then establish it? He's reinforcing its authority.
Sure.
In the lives of believers. If our belief does not nullify the authority of the Torah, but establishes the authority of the Torah, that means we're supposed to obey it.
Right. Of course.
There is so much more I could go through, and I just don't have enough time.
You'd have to write a book.
I definitely have to write a book, but I already have, actually. I'm just waiting for it to be edited, and when it's edited, it'll come out. It's called Not Under the Law. Understanding Paul from a Hebrew Mindset. So, be looking for that. Hopefully it'll get out soon. Okay, I want to do one more passage, and then we'll call it enough for now. And I wanted to go and highlight the book of Hebrews, because there's a lot of language in the book of Hebrews that confuses Christians like crazy. It confuses some Messianics like crazy. But Hebrews has got so much stuff in it. And you have to be hypersensitive to the context everywhere you read it, that the only way to get it is to go verse by verse through the whole thing. And that would take a while. So I think I'm going to write a book on that. At least a teaching that goes through all of it. But if we have a little time, I'll try to give you a brief synopsis of what that means. But before we do, I'm going to continue on with what John says here. John 3, 4 through 10. This is 1 John. I'm sorry. 1 John 4 through 10.
1 John 1.
1 John 4, 1 through, no, 1 John 3, verse 4 through 10. Well, we know what 1 John 3, 4 says, right? Everyone doing sin also does lawlessness, and sin is lawlessness. So sin is not obeying the law. And you know that he manifested, he, Yeshua, was manifested to take away our sins, and in him there is no sin. Okay, this is saying that Messiah never disobeyed the law, and he came to deliver us from the penalty of death that was on us because we disobeyed the law. Okay? Verse 6, everyone staying in him does not sin. Everyone sinning has neither seen him nor known him. Okay, now wait a minute.
Depart from me, I never knew you.
Did you hear what that said? It said that everyone staying, abiding in him, does not sin. Sin is what? Disobeying the law. So all those staying in him do not disobey the law. Remember in John 15, verses 1 through 10, he talks about, I am the vine, and you are the branches, and the Father is the husbandman. And anyone that does not bear fruit unto me, the Father takes away. Bearing what fruit? What fruit do we bear in Messiah? The fruit of righteousness. How do we bear the fruit of righteousness? By walking in obedience to the Torah. Okay? So, abiding in him means believing in him and walking in obedience to the Torah. He says, everyone abiding in him does not disobey the Torah. That's not hard, right? Then he turned around and said, everybody sinning is what? Disobeying the Torah. Okay. Everyone disobeying the law has neither seen him or known him. There's 1.5 billion Christians out there from every sect you can imagine, all claiming they no longer have to obey the law. John says they don't know him. Verse 7, little children, let no one lead you astray. The one doing righteousness is righteous, even as he is righteous. Wait a minute. Wait. Now, as a Christian, I was taught that my righteousness was not dependent on me, but I have taken on his righteousness. And so I'm safe. Once saved, always saved, right? Because when Yahweh looks at me, he doesn't look at my righteousness, he looks at his. But John says, those that are doing righteousness are righteous like he is righteous. It doesn't say those who have his righteousness are righteous. It says those who are doing righteousness are righteous. How do you do righteousness?
Follow the law.
Guard to keep all of this command, for it is your righteousness, right? That's what it says. Deuteronomy 6, 24 and 25. The one doing sin is the devil. Sin is what? Not obeying the law. So everyone not obeying the law, or excuse me, the one not obeying the law is the devil.
Of the devil.
Of the devil, my bad. So everyone not obeying the law is of Satan.
Because the devil has disobeyed the law from the beginning.
Because the devil has disobeyed sin, disobeyed the law from the beginning. For this purpose the Son of Elohim was manifested to destroy the works of Satan, the devil. He came to live in obedience to the law so that he could conquer the death that Satan convinced Adam and Eve that they needed to live in. Satan convinced Adam and Eve that they could disobey, and that disobey brought death. Messiah came to take away that death so that we can once again be in Him. Be saved, be restored. Anyone teaching you do not have to obey the law in your belief is teaching you a demonic doctrine. Verse 9, everyone having been born of Elohim does not sin. This is the third time John said that just in what we've read. Because his, Yahweh's seed stays in him. Who's the seed of Yahweh that stays in him?
Yeshua.
Yeshua. But there's another seed that stays in him. It's the Word, right? Messiah is the Word. Remember the parable of the sower? A seed was spread in the fertile ground. That seed is the Word. Messiah said, if you abide in me and my word abides in you. The Word has a spiritual side and a physical side. The spiritual side has to do with sacrifice. The physical side has to do with obedience. Messiah is the Word made flesh. He came and obeyed the law in the physical so that he could die to be the sacrifice through which all of us could be saved. He fulfilled it. So that now in Him we can obey the law and be righteous through it. Because it's not dependent on our perfection, it's dependent on Him.
Hallelujah.
It says, everyone having been born of Elohim does not sin because his seed stays in him. And he is powerless to sin because he is born of Elohim. What does it mean? Are we powerless to sin? Could I decide right now today to stop obeying the law?
Yes.
I could. So how am I powerless to sin? If Yeshua lives in me, how could I ever feel right? How could I ever choose to live against Him?
I do.
How could I claim to be His and that He is mine if I cannot obey my husband? How can I do that? I, as a believer in Yeshua who has come to the knowledge of the truth, do not have the power to walk that way anymore. Even the thought of it disgusts me. And imagine the kind of punishment, what kind of discipline the Father would give me after He's given me this much understanding and I choose to walk away from it. How much worse punishment would it be for me? Or you, or anyone else that's come to the knowledge of the truth? I want no part of that. I'd rather be dead than turn. He says, in this, the children, in this, in what? In this. What does it mean, in this?
Righteousness.
Everything he said. Those who sin are of the devil, those who do not sin are of Elohim, right? In this principle. In this, the children of Elohim and the children of the devil are manifest, made known, revealed. Everyone not doing righteousness, that means disobeying the law, is not of Elohim, neither the one not loving his brother. So, if you are believing in Yeshua and obeying the law with all of your heart and all of your mind and your strength, you are a child of Elohim. But if you are not, if you've fallen by the wayside in the doctrine that says you can believe in Messiah, but you don't have to obey the law, you are under the authority of your father, the devil. There's only two fathers, and you are the servant to the one you obey. There's Satan, and there is Yahweh. And you serve the one you obey. If you obey the law of Yahweh, you're serving Yahweh. If you don't obey the law of Yahweh, you are serving the devil. There is no other truth. No other truth. Everything else is a lie. And anybody tells you otherwise, make them prove it. We thank you for joining us. We pray that Yahweh will be with you and that the understanding of this teaching and all the truth comes into your heart, into your mind, as you learn to walk and turn and walk according to the law as He's commanded us. And we ask that you don't take my word for it. Go out, study the Word. But let me tell you, there's only one way to understand the Word. Is if you read it with a heart willing to do whatever it says. That's how you get understanding.
Amen.
Shalom.
Hallelujah.
Thank you for watching. We ask Yahweh to bless you and yours in everything that you do. Please pray for us and this ministry as we spread the light of Yahweh's truth from the Hebrew mindset. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends on Facebook and other social media. Click on the bell if you would like to be notified when we add more videos. Please accept our love and gratitude for your time and attention. Shalom.